Hey, hi.
Hello there.
Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Everything
And nothing.
Nothing. Which is really like welcome to another episode of our talk table, our talk session.
Life discussion.
Life
trying
discussions.
to figure it all out.
Connection.
Yep.
Yeah, what's up on our heart and soul too? Like what's going on?
It's been a really good weekend, so hopefully all of our topics are like uplifting and cheery and
yeah, it has been a good week.
A little bit feel good.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun stuff.
Yep.
Had a tea party yesterday. It was super fun.
Yeah. Went and hit some
Golfing,
balls with a stick with my boys.
Hanging out with people. It was great. Yeah. So let's dive in.
Yeah, why not?
I think
that's what we're here to do.
I think you're
going to
start. Yeah.
All
I'm
right.
so curious. What is it you want to talk about today?
Well, you don't know yet.
I don't.
Nobody knows yet. Do I know? Well, we're about to find out. You know how it is, like, when you get really angry and you black out and you wake up in a police station?
What? No.
No, of course you don't.
No, I don't know that one.
Man things. Anger, aggression.
I know anger.
Yeah,
I do know anger.
We all do. But it's innately tied to being a masculine trait. And there's this divide between masculinity and femininity in emotions. And I wanted to kind of look at that a little bit today.
Okay.
So where does that separation come from? What is the engine of masculinity? We have anger, obviously. We have passion, I think kind of goes both way. Ambition a little bit. Power, strength, these are very masculine ideals. And I think anger is like the main emotion that's like tied to, the male. And looking at the other side of the coin, what would you say about
for the feminine?
For the feminine, yeah, just off the top of your.
Well, definitely there's this nurturing, this mothering. I mean, we can actually create life. So we actually are a vessel for procreation. There is the ability for, I think, like details, and we can manage a lot of stuff. Where I feel like men are more like depart like this, like we can do the more broad stroke vision and holding and organizing, and then there's like the sensuality, the softness, the gatherer, the man, typically hunter.
True.
We're talking like broad strokes. Of course there's variations within this.
Always.
But there's that.
Yeah, I would say you guys have grace and beauty.
Yeah, there's this graceful,
Yeah, you have
there's
this interpersonal relationship building. Like obviously the feminine I feel is better at that.
And communicate, like the if you think of hens, cluck cluck cluck, coming together, and the women's circle, which the men have that too, their own version.
Yeah, but we're more like, hey, look at my truck.
Exactly. And we're like, we want to hear the details. We want to hear the story.
Yeah.
We want to hear the minutest, like how'd that feel? How did it happen? And that's really great because Jim will be like, he'll talk to his mom, and I'll be like, so what'd you guys talk about? And he's like, oh, and he'll say it in like 3 sentences. And I'm like, but what did she say? But what about that? And I'm like, I want to know some details.
How did it make her feel?
Yeah, I was like, what? Like, tell me what, And he's like, and so I want to know details.
Yeah.
Otherwise, that means it's meaningless to me. Oh, we said hello. She went and did these things. They're good.
Yeah.
What?
She got a new truck.
Yeah. Jim's not quite.
Yeah, I know.
He's,
not even close.
No. So,
it's interesting.
It
is.
Yeah.
And I would say, so kind of anger is the main emotion that has like a negative connotation in a lot of senses, and is also prescribed to masculinity. And looking at what would be comparable on the feminine side, my first hit is like sorrow, grief.
Oh.
That feels like a very feminine one to me. And I would say it gets a bad rap almost just as much as anger does.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with a friend the other day, that for a long period of time, I mean, women were dosed. There was they were sent to the doctor for being too emotional. And it was diagnosed as hysteria.
Yeah, it's right.
And I'm like, what the fuck? Excuse my language, but as a woman, that's so offensive that, okay, I'm having big feelings about something, and it's like, oh my God, eye roll. You're being too dramatic. You're having a hysterical moment, but what's the root cause? Like, why, and I agree. I think same with men is like, and I've had an issue with that. We've had conversations when I've seen Jim get angry or you. It's like I shut down. I get scared, and I'm like, and I'm like, stop, know.
Yep.
And Jim's like, this is normal for me. Let me have my emotions, which is, Arr!
Yeah.
And I'm like, but why do you think that is? Do you think that, my first instinct is the reason why that's hard is because that anger has been used against women for a long time.
That's very possible. I think that if you have a set of trauma memories tied to people being angry, I think it would make total sense that you'd want to shut down when anger comes up. And I think that a lot of people, I think men probably use anger in an unhealthy way, and don't know what it is or how to tame it.
Yeah.
Because at its core, the reason I brought these two emotions up is because they're thought of as negative. But I think intrinsically they both are positive if you learn how to master them.
Absolutely.
If you learn why they exist and you learn how to identify it, and then learn to look at why am I that way, and then use that emotion to heal or to solve whatever that issue is. And anger leads to rage, leads to violence. That is very much the case.
At the negative aspect. At the negative end of it.
Aspect.
Yeah.
But once again, violence in certain situations is merited and needed to protect the family, to protect the self, to protect society. And that line gets even grayer as we start to go out onto these fringe cases. But anger, we need to embrace it. We need to look at it. I remember when I was a young man, I was a very angry kid. Could we agree on that?
Absolutely.
I remember I'd go into a stall and just bang my head against the wall to feel pain, just I was pissed, I don't know. It was like a young buck hitting a tree or something. And it was pretty inexplicable. I didn't know why I was angry or what was going on. But looking back in retrospect, I was pissed off at my whole upbringing situation. I was pissed off at parents and
divorce,
just not understanding how to handle a split home, or really just being lost. I was lost, and anger was a natural conduit for my being a man to just feel.
Yeah.
And so I had to get past all that. And for a long time, I was kind of scared of myself, and I refrained from doing certain things or putting myself in situations. Like, for example, I didn't buy a gun for a long time because I didn't really trust myself with it. I'd seen myself do dumb things with other stuff that I owned, and I was like, probably don't want to add that to the list of a possibility. But growing up more and more, I slowly started to understand what my anger was and why it was, and eventually really just kind of chilled out. And I don't know if that's just a part of growing up, like hormonal changes in the brain, or just looking and observing and working with it over time. But at the end of the day, anger still is a very important piece. I remember when I had an ex-girlfriend one time call the cops on me.
Yeah,
and,
I remember that.
They showed up to question and arrest me, I guess. I don't know. And I was at my folks' house at the time.
Yeah.
And Jim stood up for me in a way that I'd never really seen anybody stand up for me before.
Yeah.
Like, I saw him go red. Like,
Yeah.
he just got pissed at these cops.
Yeah.
He started going at him, like just telling him off and be like, hey, you know what? If you've been watching this whole situation, you know this other lady's a liar.
Yeah.
She's been doing it a long time.
Yep.
And, you know, if you guys have to take him in, then we have to press charges and you got to take her in too.
Yeah.
And he just made it a big problem for them, and
Yeah.
they had to concede.
Yeah, they did concede.
They did. They were
Yeah.
like, all right, well, sorry to bother you.
Yeah.
You know, and they were doing their job, and they were
Yeah.
within their right to, because, you know, they got a call from somebody, and they should believe somebody who calls them.
Absolutely.
But until you get more context, you just don't know.
Right. You got to hear both sides.
You got to hear.
And
both
that was
sides.
a situation where they took, like, he's abusing me, yada, yada, yada. And then they were just like, okay, we're going to go arrest him. And then,
Yeah.
you know, Jim, his stepdad, is the kind of guy who is, you know, very upstanding and strong and a part of the, you know, the society in a very positive way. And he also has experience with people who have been in the system, which she had, but she'd been in a lot of foster care, and he understood how people can weaponize that. They know how to use the system to hurt people or get what they want, and that's what she was doing. Yeah, so when they,
God bless her.
I know,
Yeah.
and I love her, you know, like, bless her, yes. But thank God, you know, because Jim did, and he used that anger in that moment to be like, here's the other side of the story. This isn't true.
Here's the
this
line.
isn't happening.
Yep.
And if you want to do this, then we are going to press charges, because what she's doing is defaming, you know. And
Yeah.
it was interesting. It was interesting then to watch the cops get all the information and understand it, and then go like, oh yeah, now we can see that. And then also we don't want to do all that paperwork.
Exactly. Lazy bastards.
And they were like, okay, well, you know, and also because Jim was like, look, we're parenting, like, we're on. We got Dane. We know him. He is not just some rogue kid running around doing things. And they also, you know, understood that too. So that's a perfect example of how I think that, you know, that, and I've seen that a few times in Jim, where he pulls on that male anger that just, like, puts a stake in the ground and, like, this is truth.
Yeah.
This is true, and this is what it is.
Anger really allows you to override fear. And I think a lot of
Absolutely.
people would be like, I'm afraid. The police are here. I'm afraid.
Yeah, I'm just going to do what they're saying.
Yeah, authority,
Yeah,
you know.
that thing.
Yep.
Authority. That
Yep.
code of. Well, and I just want to go back, because
Please,
when you
go.
were talking about, you know, how men innately have this and women have the grief feeling aspect a little bit more. You know, I think that's really interesting, because I don't know if I've ever thought about it this consciously in this kind of like conversational context. And I think it's, again, like recognizing that if we have more of this innately, because I have felt a lot of shame around my sadness and my sensitivity and my, you know, the way I can just feel grief a lot.
Yeah.
I have felt shamed about that a lot. Like, oh, there she is, you know, just crying again, or emotional about something, you know. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to toughen up and, like, oh, you know. But that's not my natural inkling. My natural inkling is, like, very compassionate and open and expressive, and that, you know. So I'm thinking in this moment as we're talking, like, if men and women, and we can all think about this together, if we can just accept that this is maybe more a natural part of our anatomy,
Yeah.
and how we are born into this world, and rather than have to label it as something good or something bad, but to change that perspective of, like, okay, if this is innately who I am, then how can I use this
Exactly.
as a tool? Because it's what I was born with. So how can I use this, like you said, in the most positive aspect, you know? And then I think we also have, right? I've heard we also have feminine within ourselves.
Of course.
So constantly finding that balance. And so, yeah, I've been over dramatic and over sad sometimes. And now I'm learning how to access more of my masculinity. And I'm getting better at it. And I'm not afraid of anger anymore. If you get angry or Jim gets angry or I see violence, it's not enjoyable. But I don't shut down and go into, now I can be like, I can pull that part of myself up and be aware or not be afraid of it.
Well, so diving into the other side a little bit, how would you describe sorrow or grief, and what's kind of the application of it as a tool or as a feeling, as an emotion?
See, this one's hard. That's a really hard one. And I mean, this might take us down a whole completely different rabbit hole, because I feel that for me and a lot of my friends in my community have a lot of that unhealthy sadness. And I'm just using that. I'm not saying something's wrong with us or whatever, but I'm just saying maybe a more unusual amount of it, because there's a long standing lineage of abuse, I think, to women, of being, for a long time we were considered property. We didn't have any rights, and I think it's just like that ancestral thing that gets passed down. I think there's this collective female thing that we've been so, put down and minimized and hurt and used and abused, that I think that was kind of like something that kind of got stimulated as a way to process and heal this collective thing that's been happening, but where does it originally begin and end? I don't know. That's just my first hit as a woman.
I like it. It's truth. It's honest. Yeah. My first hit is that grief is what you feel around loss, right? You lose somebody is kind of the most exemplamatic way that I feel sorrow or grief. I remember when I was a little kid, I lost my stuffed hippopotamus, and I remember crying all night long one night on my bunk bed. I was just like,
oh, I remember that.
And it was, pretty pointless.
But it was sad.
But yeah, I like that pink hippopotamus for some reason. So we lose somebody, and we go into this state. Mm-hmm. So it's a mechanism to process loss on some level, right?
Yeah. Loss of self, loss of, it could be little losses and big losses. It could be as simple as, for me, when the loss of when I got pregnant the first time, and the loss of my independence and being able to do whatever I want. There felt like there was a big loss, and I was like, it took me a while to process that. My friends were still playing and going out, and here I was, a young mother, and I felt a huge lot of grief around that. But the same happened when you guys grew up and left. Then I had to go through the loss again, because now I had to let go of you guys, and the loss of now what do I do? Now who am I? Because I'd been a mom for so long. It could be a loss of a job or it's so vast.
Loss of a kitty cat.
Yeah, loss of our sweet little animals that we love, and parents and friends, and
I'm not sure how or why. I still don't really understand grief. Being a man, I do understand anger, and I'm hoping to learn more about grief as well. But I will say, I don't cry often, but when I do, it brings a sense of kind of real peace and clarity afterwards, which kind of transcends whatever the anxiety I had was about the loss. So it's kind of just a transformational moment to evolution, to growing as a human psyche, it seems to me.
Yeah, well, and on the science end, there's proof that you actually release toxins when you cry.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. You're actually, it's very cathartic.
Purifying. Huh?
It's purifying. So on the science part of it, it has that, effect. But also I found, because I have cried a lot, and for me, what it does, it feels like it reboots something. It feels like it's almost like a computer shutting down
Yeah.
and releasing all the garbage and junk that's been collected. And then it just and then I feel clear, it's like the programs are running
there. Yeah.
super clarity.
Yep.
And
I wish I was sad more, I guess, is what I'm learning right now.
I wonder if there's a way we can make you sad. Well, you know what? Sometimes when I feel like I need to cry and I can't, I'll watch a sad movie or I'll play a sad song to help me, to be the catalyst.
I do, music or media can get me sometimes.
Music
Yep,
is big time for me.
Yep.
It's like there's a certain harmonic, frequency. There's these certain melodies that just can make me cry.
Certain things for certain people, too. I remember my grandma, she'd cry whenever she saw an American flag. Like,
I know.
just
Mom's like...
the memories tied to it, the patriotism tied to it. We all have our own triggers with it. Just much like rage and anger. Like every man or every person has certain buttons and triggers that'll set them off.
Yeah.
Sorrow's very similar in that way.
Yeah. And it's interesting because we're totally breaking this down and simplifying it. And of course, there are many men who do identify with their feminine side, or women who are definitely tap into the masculinity side more. And I guess for me, it's like my goal is the balance between the two, because I've done a lot of work and I feel like my sadness is healthier now. It's not just always feeling sorry for myself, or I'm a victim, or, oh, they did that to me. Now I feel like it's a little bit more healthier, like, whew, this is a big wound and I feel it. I just need to cry, without putting a bunch of crap all over it. And same with the anger now. I feel like when I feel angry, I don't just shut it down, because I was terrified of my anger. I mean, it would make me feel so uncomfortable, and because I saw people go out of control with it all the time in my upbringing and in my world. And I didn't trust myself either, but more than that, I was just afraid of how it felt. But now I'm not. And now I see it as something very productive. And when I'm angry, to me, it's a sign, pay attention. Something is either wrong, there is something out of balance, you're not taking care of yourself. There's a reason the anger shows up. There's a reason the grief shows up. Yeah. And I think that they're healing tools. And not just healing, I think they're growing tools. It's how we can evolve as human beings.
Yeah.
Is pay attention of it, and then how are you going to express it or work with it?
And they're indicators. And I look at our emotional body much as sort of a compass or a guide. Mm-hmm. And by being able to feel, we're able to actually know on an inner level if we're making the right decision, if we're in the right relationship, if we're accepting the right job, if we're driving the right direction. Mm-hmm. Just by paying attention to how you feel on a day-to-day basis, you can understand. A lot of people live in an anxious, nervous, miserable, like they just feel depressed life. Yeah. That's an indicator.
Yeah,
it's an indicator that you got to change
something's not right.
Something's wrong. You're in the wrong spot, and you need to make a different decision.
Or you're in the wrong relationship.
Yeah.
And it's okay to get help.
It is, absolutely. I've been there. I've done that.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like, because I find this is like, I know there's an issue, but I don't know how to fix it. So I've been looking for people who do know how to. It's like, I'm not a plumber. I'm going to start talking about something. So I can try to tinker around for years fixing my own plumbing, but
just hire a plumber.
Hire a plumber. So that's what I'm saying is like, I go to specialists. I go, like right now I'm in physical therapy for my ankle, and I feel like I'm a very intuitive person, but I lost confidence in how to use my ankle because it's hurt. And so going to the physical therapist professional, they've helped me regain, like, this kind of pain's too much. Yeah. This kind of pain is good. Push through this a little bit more.
This amount of grief, this amount of anger, it's helpful.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. But when you go red and you end up in a jail, that might be not helpful.
That's how you know you had a good night.
I don't think so. Like, don't call me. No, kidding.
All right.
But yeah, so it's, yeah, really interesting.
That's a good topic, and I think we'll leave it there.
Yeah, I think
Switch it
that's
up.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds like a good place. I think I wanted to
know.
say one more thing about
Please
this,
do.
and that's
Please do.
just, again, it's that change of perspective. I just feel like I want to say this for myself, to give myself permission to look at my grief and look at my anger, as an indicator that something is not right, and that use it as a tool to make some kind of shift. Like, invite it in. Don't be like, oh my gosh, there it is, bad, go away. Invite it in, use it. Yeah,
Agreed.
I just want to say that.
It's there for a reason.
Yep.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
Take a
yeah,
break
take a
and
quick
switch it
break,
up.
and we'll part
Perfect.
2.
Perfect.
Perfect. That's yummy. It's left over from my tea party. It's sage, peppermint, lavender, and calendula flowers. It's really yummy.
Ain't no party like my mama's tea party.
That's right. Oh, gosh. Anyway. Well, thank you for that. Well, we're going to move on, and it's my turn now. So,
It is.
I've been thinking about this all the last 2 weeks, and my topic today is about synchronicities. Because I've been really, as a feng shui consultant, like, I deal with energy, and that's part of that world, right? Is paying attention to, like, the signs and the symbols, and so I really wanted, and I've had some really big experiences lately with it. So I just kind of wanted to delve in. So I want to start first of all by just kind of like, doing like there's a couple of definitions I found of synchronicity that I want to just kind of lay out there. And the first one is more like the just clinical, Webster, which is, a synchronicity is the simultaneous occurrences of events which appear significant, like they're related, but have no discernible causal connection. So I thought that was interesting. It's like, it can appear like it, but it doesn't really mean that something is happening.
So, like, if I have a dream that somebody's going to show up in my life, and then
Right.
they do show up in my life,
They're saying
it's like, there's no real
Yeah.
cause, but it looks very much related.
yes.
Yeah, okay.
And then more of the spiritual, meaning is meaningful coincidences that occur in our lives, events that seem to be connected in a way that goes beyond mere chance. So it's pretty much the same thing, but they're not saying it's not related. And Carl Jung was the one who really kind of brought this up and out, in my opinion. And so, so synchronicities, I think, it doesn't matter what your belief is, whether it's atheist, scientific, Buddha, Christian, religious. It could be prayer, it could be God. I mean, symbols can be like anything. It could be animals, numbers, a song, yeah, it could be anything. And so it could be like and this has happened to me, where I'm, thinking about my mom, and suddenly her favorite song comes on the radio, which is, You Are My Sunshine. I'm like, oh, hello, Mom. Or I've had this happen where, I'm thinking about a friend, and then they suddenly call, And so what do the synchronicities mean? Like, why, what is this? Like, what is this thing that's showing up? I mean, do you even believe in synchronicity?
Yeah, and I can't, I don't have a good example off the top of my head, but synchronicities to me, things do seem to come in waves.
Yeah.
I remember there was, back in my 20s, there was like, I don't know, a year or two when I was single, and then all of a sudden I had 4 girlfriends all at the same time. They just all came out of the woodwork. And no, I didn't really, but it's like, now the 4 people all want to date me. It's like, where were you guys the last 3 years, I've been looking for you. I think from the scientific standpoint, or spiritual standpoint, kind of we operate up here and on another level as kind of a frequency, right? Mm-hmm. And something happens when you finally have an epiphany or a breakthrough. Your frequency shifts, and all of a sudden, you attract or see and recognize a lot of what it is that you've been looking for, or in some cases fearing, or it's kind of a law of attraction, and also of just noticing patterns.
Yeah.
One other example is like, so you buy a new car, and then all of a sudden you see hundreds of that car on the road, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
just all of a sudden have an awareness
Yeah.
to look out for it, and so now you start to notice it.
Yeah. So was it always there, or did this something get unlocked in the consciousness that now it can see it? You
Yeah.
know, because is there a spiritual element that's orchestrating? Like, I think of it kind of like an energy that's flowing, you know, and that can, you know, creating similar frequencies for meetups at timings, you know, or
Yeah.
different things. And then I know I've heard other people say, no, it's just all your brain. It's just making stuff up. It's just, you know, and I'm like, I'm fine with that too. It's like,
Yeah.
but I'm happy to believe it's still happening for me. So I'm happy. Because I know from a scientific point of view, they also say there is the quantum physics that says the observer, whatever you're observing, that thing can change. So
Yeah.
maybe because I'm observing this all of a sudden, then it goes boop, 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 and all those things start rushing in.
Yeah,
You know?
I think that observation has a key, being aware has a key, and conscious manifestation all have a key. And how those all interrelate, I don't know. I'm just a human. I don't know this stuff, but
Oh, come on.
I mean, it's kind of
Let's-
it's very cosmic. It's very
It
out
is very
there.
cosmic.
It's I mean, synchronicity by its definition is really undefinable. It's
Yeah.
just something that doesn't have a cause, which seems connected. And at the end of the day, everything's connected.
Yeah.
And is there a cause that we're all here?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to talk a little bit about this, but for me, I absolutely believe in synchronicities. And again, as you all have heard me talk about, I'm very, very spiritual. And this is the world that I do walk in. And I find that in my life, the more that I have believed in this and the more that I pay attention, it's about, for me, it's like slowing down and listening and watching. And the more I've done that, I will say synchronicities are happening to me like multiple times a day in my life. It's so common occurrence now that I almost don't even see it. But for me, I've always believed it's also a way for other worldly beings to talk to us, like my mom, who I do feel like watches over me and walks with me. I feel like it's a way that a higher consciousness can teach me, be it God, be it Holy Spirit, whatever you believe. I do believe it's a way for something to help divine. And
Follow the signs.
Yeah.
Follow the signs.
Yeah.
Well, my question.
And answer questions for me.
Yeah. I mean, I guess clairvoyancy and divination has its roots in that as well, being able to read signs in the physical world, from tea leaves to stars. But do you have any potent examples in your life that really just hammer this one home?
Yeah, I do. Recently, so I was working with a client, and I've been working on this very old structure in Old Town, Portland. And it was one of the original first hotels in Portland. And I've been working on this building. Like, I go back regularly and do clearings and healings and feng shui. And I think something like, I don't know, I've been working on this space for 15 years, 13 years, I don't know, a long time.
Yeah.
And there's layers of healing. And this is like the land that originally was taken, from the Native Americans. There's that. And then came us, and they, for Portland's history, we went through what was called, Shanghai tunnels. I mean, there was a lot of like sex trafficking, slavery, drugs, and there's a deep history in Old Town, Portland. And in the actual space, there's 3 old Shanghai tunnels that have been sealed up. And as long as I've been doing work there, it hasn't been easy work. It's always kind of heavy and to move through this and bring that love and that light and that beauty. Fast forward. And then sometimes, I'm human. I'm like, gosh, is this working? Is this doing anything? And I know it is because I've seen examples. But sometimes you question. You're like, like whatever it is. Did I help that person? Did I do this? And I feel like synchronicities are a way that I kind of get that confirmation sometimes. So anyway, I'll tell the synchronicity now. I just wanted to lay out the story. So my husband watches this. His name is Mateos Di Stefano, and he's a spiritual teacher, kind of a influential, conscious, educator, and he's pretty big in the spiritual world. Like he's been on Gaia TV, network, and he does all kinds of talks all over the world and different things. And so my husband Jim likes to follow him. And about a month ago, he was listening to one of his, recordings, and he was like, oh my God, Anezka, he's talking about the building that you work on in Old Town. And I was like, what? And there was all these weird synchronicities as the story's telling. And one of the synchronicities is that Jim is watching this video, and the guy on the video is talking about how a hummingbird came up and was tapping on the window. And exactly at that moment, at our house, a hummingbird came up to our window and started tapping. Strange things like that. But the story that's most interesting in the synchronicity is that he was sent a CD from Portland, Oregon, from nobody he knows. And inside there was a CD that was called The Dark Night of Soul. And it was a pianist from Chicago, and he listened to it, and he kind of had this spiritual epiphany that he had to come to Portland. And so he came to Portland, and I'm going to nutshell this because it's a really big, long story. There's lots of synchronicities. So he comes to Portland, going to leave. His plane gets, canceled. He's got to wait. He's walking around. He ends up drawn to Old Town Portland, and this is like in 2013. He hears pianos, and he comes to this building, which at the time was a bar that had dueling pianos, and he's comes there, and he has this epiphany that's like, I have to move to Portland. He was so drawn. He goes, I could just feel the energy here. And it's like, I have to come to Portland, and I'm paraphrasing, I have to come to Portland, and this is where some big work's going to happen for me. So it took him like 10 years later, and so this, or however long, and he went on his journey, I went on my journey, but the whole time doing the work on this building. So he finally comes back in 2025 or 20, and he says, I had to go back to that same place because this is the place that had originally called him to Portland.
The same building you work on.
The same building I work on. And he goes, and I was drawn to it, and he goes, and it was like, whoa. He's like, it had completely transformed. He said there were prayer flags. He could feel the Om Mani Padme Om, which for those of you who don't know what that is, it's in feng shui, it's a prayer. Om Mani Padme Om, which is what I use a lot in this work. And there were Buddhas, and he was just like, oh my God, it had completely transformed. And there were a whole bunch of other synchronicities for him, about the building, which I don't want to share. But it was one of those moments, and I'm watching this, and I just started to cry. And there's my feminine energy.
Yeah.
But it was healthy because in that moment, it's like, here's somebody I don't know who doesn't know anything about the work that I've been doing on that space for 10 years, 13 years. And the fact that he felt it and was drawn to it, and that it had a, it
had an impact.
An impact that changed the course of his life, was like such a validation that, I think was like, yes, what you do has an impact. Yes, what this work is real. And I think that that's the one that I want to share, because this question for me isn't just about like what is synchronicity, but it's about giving us all permission to what is it that whatever it is that you're doing or helping or how you're showing up, it's having a real impact on the world, and to believe that.
I like that.
Believe that you matter. Believe that however you're loving or cleaning a house or a toilet or dropping off food for a friend or whatever, that you are being synchronicity. That maybe you are the thing that's coming to help that person answer a question, or to give them a ray of hope, or whatever in that moment. Yeah. So maybe synchronicity isn't just happening to us or for us, but that we are also synchronicity. And how can we be more in that flow? Because you feel like you've been synchronicity for someone or something?
No, never. I mean,
I think about your travels. I mean, I think about when you biked from here. Like, I remember hearing all the synchronicities of how somebody would just drive up alongside of you and hand you cookies and be, hey, go on.
Yeah, people would just randomly email me and you'd be like, hey, I hear you're coming to our town. We're out of town, sorry. But here's the keys to our mansion, and just hang out. But I don't know. I mean,
anyway,
everything lined up in a way that I guess you could kind of call it all a synchronicity. But I mean, I guess a good example for me, at least, would be starting this business, this belt shelf business.
Yeah.
Which, you know, I've started trying to build a couple years ago, and kind of, you know, taken my foot off the gas a little bit this last 6 months, but we're still pushing on it. Mm-hmm. But throughout my 20s, 30s, I spent a lot of time learning a lot of different trades and crafts, just kind of out of curiosity.
Yeah.
I learned like 3D design, did a bunch of like video rendering, learned web development.
Yeah, you learned a lot.
You know, I learned a lot about, actually spent time in a 3D printing lab and tried to like 3D print just for no reason. A lot of these skills that seem to really not go anywhere, I learned them all. And then it wasn't until I started trying to build my own business that all these things started to come together. It's like, I have an idea for an invention. Oh, well, I guess I can draw it and 3D model it myself. Oh, I guess I could just like launch my own website because I learned that. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, I guess I know about 3D printing, so we can just print it. You know, that makes perfect sense.
Exactly.
So all of those skills that seemed unrelated and could easily have been argued at the time were a complete waste of my time, all came back and all helped form the foundation of what building my first prototype and the business to where it is now from scratch.
Yeah.
And I found that quite a coincidence.
Yeah.
That just all these skills happened to come together.
Yeah. Yeah. So there could be like the macro, you know, synchronicity and a micro, like there could be synchronicities in this moment to that moment.
Synchronicities within synchronicities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that might like, but what you just explained is like sometimes maybe our lifetime as a full.
Yeah.
You know, like all these things, because I've had that experience too, where all these seemingly like, well, I don't know why I did that. That was a waste of time. And then suddenly it comes in and it weaves in. It's that perfect thing that just brought the tapestry together. And you're like, wow, I couldn't have planned that.
Well, you know what Jim always said, who's to say what's good or bad? I was just talking to a friend of mine last night, and he was very excited because he's just got a new job, and he's going on about it. And he's like, oh, yeah, man, I had the interview with the head guy. He's like the regional manager, and he was a little nervous. And it wasn't until his boss asked him, like, what's one thing that's surprising about you? Nobody would know. And this friend answered, well, I only have one lung. And it sparked the conversation about him having had cancer and having to have that lung removed. And that was the moment that shifted the whole conversation, and he knew he got the job, which is like his dream job. He's super stoked on it now.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's like this guy had cancer in his 20s and got royally screwed over. But then, 8-10 years later, it happens to be the catalyst that gets him the job that he wanted.
Yeah.
So once again, who's to say what's good or bad? What's the synchronicity? Even if it feels like a complete negative, it might be the one thing you treasure in the end.
And that kind of then loops through to me about the whole masculine and feminine, and looking at like what are these, what are our innate emotions, and again looking at them like, who's to say what's good or bad,
Exactly.
and how do those traits play into our synchronicities, and again, it's like, I don't know, I think from the beginning, since we've been doing this podcast, it's a lot about changing perspective. And I feel like this is a podcast really more than anything about talking and exploring and expanding and being curious. And it's funny that the more that we've been doing this, the more that I feel like my mind is opening up. And it's like the ability to just like, change my perspective. Like, how can this help me?
Yeah.
How can this move me to where I do want to be? Like, how is depression good? Like, how is power good?
Yeah.
How can I use these things? How can I have power in my anger?
How is bleeding in a police station good?
Hey, you might have changed somebody's life there. Who knows?
Changed
I don't know.
mine.
Yeah, well, it changed ours too, because we had to come get you. And
Yep.
now people are going to be like, why were you in jail?
Different story for a different day.
Yeah, I have a lot of those stories too in different ways, and I'm sure most of us do. But yeah, but again, that's the thing, is like always figuring out like, I'm always looking at like, how can this help me? And so I guess the whole point of me bringing up the synchronicity is, just to invite you and us and you this next 2 weeks, like really pay attention.
Yeah, okay.
And don't just like be, oh yeah, that's just nothing.
Just
like
watch the signs.
Yeah, what is that cosmic connection? Like, what is that thing that you've thought of at exactly the moment, and then maybe tying in like, how we're feeling, and how can that be
I like that.
a healthy tool?
Look, listen, pay attention.
Act.
Exactly. This is a public service announcement.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. But I feel like I've been really fortunate. Like, I've had a lot of really cool synchronicities in my life. And I really am grateful, because they've really changed the trajectory. Because I've also saved myself from danger before. Like, just having that feeling and seeing a sign and like, oh, I need to get off here, and then finding out I missed a really bad car accident. I've had that happen multiple times.
Yeah.
Or that little voice that's like, don't go here right now. And then come to find out there's like this serial killer on the loose. I've had that happen.
Yeah.
And I really pay attention to the signs and the symbols and the intuition and the synchronicity. And if I meet somebody too, because I've gotten jobs before by, like this synchronicity of like sitting in this chair and then talking to someone, and I got a job in Maui that way.
Yeah.
And having that connection, so it all matters. I think it all matters.
I guess it's all synchronicity at the end of the day.
We're sitting here as synchronicity, right?
It's probably going to sync up with somebody sitting somewhere.
Absolutely. Yeah, actually, that's a really good point, probably. So, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel pretty complete. Anything else you want to share?
I mean, that topic caught me off guard. I feel like I was just sitting here in a spiral of fog the entire time.
You're welcome.
But it was fun. It was fun.
You're welcome.
I'll definitely be looking at the signs a little closer this week.
Yeah.
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 I hope you do too.
Yeah, hope you do too. And make peace with whatever it is you're feeling. I'm going to do that, like, as I'm having whatever feelings are coming up, I'm going to be like, how can I see and feel this differently as a positive thing?
At the end of the day, we'll all be better off if we work to better understand what's going on here.
Absolutely.
Here.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So let's keep looking at it.
Let's keep looking at it.
Yep.
All right. That's it for this episode, I think. Hope you've enjoyed it. I know I have.
I always do.
I always
A cup
do
of
too.
coffee and a good discussion is just
My favorite
what
thing.
this boy needs.
All right, everybody. Take care. Be well. Big love.
We'll see you down the road.
Yeah. Have a great 2 weeks. Ciao.